Hey, everybody. How is your Thursday? So, I just wanted to say, welcome to Engineering the Paranormal. This is a place where we explore the tech and ghost hunting. I'm your host, Rob Walczak, and whether you're a seasoned investigator or just getting started, I'm happy to have you here. Your curiosity and supports fuel this podcast. Each episode, we aim to bring you closer to the tools and techniques and the tales that make up the paranormal world so fascinating. So grab your EMF meters, your thermal cameras, or a spot on the couch, and let's get started. Let me get my comments going. Hello, Sarah. Paranormal Theory. What's up? Rob S. I'm W. So that's Rob S. How's it going? So, what I wanted to talk to you all today, I feel like I need to talk about the drones. Everybody's talking about the drones. I don't have them in my backyard. I live in Iowa, so in the middle of the country. Um, what do I think? I think they're U.S. government-controlled drones, and they are working on a secret mission. I think they are looking for something, searching for something, and since they're so big, right? They're like the size of a small car. That means they've got a lot of sensors. They're lifting a payload. Um, so I suspect, I suspect that they're looking for a dirty bomb, is what I think, and I think that's what's going on in the UK as well. I think they're looking for a dirty bomb over there. Also, I hope that's not the case, but I do believe it's U.S. government secret mission, and they are searching for something. But, but that's it on the drones. I know the drones are getting beat to death now. Poor drones. But that's just my thoughts on them. So I was doing some research today, or not really research, but just poking around the internet, and I came across this Paranormal Confessions of Rock and Metal's Biggest Stars. It's on loudwire.com. And they've got, all the big rock bands talking about how they've been to a lot of places that have been haunted. Not as a ghost hunter, but just as musicians, but they would go to these venues, these clubs, which are usually old buildings, maybe old maybe old churches. Is what I was trying to get. And yeah, what a dirty bomb is. A dirty bomb is basically nuclear radiation that somebody carries around with them. And people unsuspectingly are exposed to this radiation and get sick and die from it. That's a dirty bomb. Um, they are, there's one country that's very famous for using dirty bombs. Yeah. So, and that's Russia, right? Just about every political opponent that Putin has ever had has died from radiation poisoning. So, yeah, Russia is big and using dirty bombs. Uh, but that's what I think that they're looking for, based off how big they are and the amount of sensors or some kind of capacity they have is they're yeah, they're looking for something. They're gathering data on something for real. Um, I'm learning how to show the comments, and I apparently have to unshow the comments as well. Um, so what was I just talking about? Yeah, isotope sniffers. Uh, oh yeah, the Loudwire thing with the rock star. So when I lived in Michigan, I was in a rock band, and I also worked at a recording studio. I was also a audio engineer, and a lot of the clubs and venues there in Detroit were just old Catholic churches as they turned into you know rock clubs. So they're old, and a lot of these bands go there. And some of these big time rock and rollers were talking about their experiences in these venues and running into ghosts. Not when they wanted to, right? They were practicing for, uh, you know, jamming out for that night, and they run into a ghost. So Jay Weinberg of Slipknot said, "When you're open to it, you'll see their presence in your life. POD has seen angels and demons. They said there's obviously something out there. Good morning, Damien. Candy. The anthrax, he had an interesting take on it. He said the residue of depression hangs thick in the air of some places. And get this, I didn't know this ever took place at Waverly Hills, but Shadowfall, the rock band, played a concert at Waverly Hills. They did a little investigation of their own and caught some pictures. One of them was a black figure on the upper floor, which that entire wing was shut down. There's nobody allowed in there. But they saw the picture, or they had a picture of this black figure leaning over the rails, looking down at them. The best one, the one I really liked, is Dave Mustaine of Megadeth. He was in a haunted recording studio doing some overdubs. This was in Kentucky. And they captured footsteps on the floor above. Now, they were the only ones there. You can imagine if Megadeth shows up, everything gets locked down, right? But they captured footsteps on the floor above, and the sensitive studio microphones picked up the footsteps. So they still, he said, they still have these recordings of these ghost footsteps on the floor above them. And like I said, I used to be an audio engineer in my early 20s when I lived there in Detroit, and I worked for a few studios around there. Well, I should say I didn't work; I was free labor because they don't really pay, but you get experience. And one of the things that bugs me is, oh, you chatted with Dave Mustaine about a shout out. Cool. So EVPs, right? People always say, skeptics will say, well, that's the microphone picking up a radio station. Well, I worked in quite a few recording studios, and I recorded a lot of. I actually recorded the Suicide Machines demo. I was one of the engineers for that. If you don't know who the Suicide, they used to be called Jack Kevorkian and the Suicide Machines, but Jack's lawyer sued them, and they just became the Suicide Machines. So they're a ska band out of Michigan. Well, working in those studios, I never once had been in a situation where I had to tell the singer to try again because we picked up 101 FM. We never picked up radio stations in our microphones. And if any microphone was going to pick up a radio station, it would have been a studio microphone, super sensitive, super expensive. The only thing I ever had to tell them to do over was to get rid of the lip smacks. That was the annoying part of recording audio voices. Singers are the lip smacks. But yeah, no. So that's one of my takeaways from working in a studio is no, microphones do not pick up radio stations. They're not receivers. It's just a magnetic coil, and it's not capable of picking up of the of a radio station. Do you think entity followed them or was part of the location? I don't know. I don't know what their history is with ghosts. I don't know if they do any ghost hunting of their own or what have you. But it is Megadeth, right? So we always attribute the occult to hard rock. The Champagne Lady, no, but I have heard of them. I hear there's a Rob in that band as well. So do you care to elaborate on this Champagne Lady? Is it like the lady in white kind of thing? Champagne Lady hang out with the lady in white, going up and down staircases. My aunt just passed away, but she used to live in a haunted house in St. Augustine, Florida. And one of the things they would see is a lady in white going up and down the stairs. And we would go visit. My dad owned property down in the Florida Keys. So as we were going down, we'd hang out there at St. Augustine with my aunt in her haunted, very big house, old house. And it was cool. You could sit in the living room and see through the dining area and then into some other rooms like the kitchen. And one of them was the utility room. and that utility room light would flip on by itself all the time. It was, I mean, you could go and investigate it, and that switch was flipped up on its own. So that would happen while I was there. And I remember my cousin and I, we were sitting there playing the Atari, if you remember an Atari. Um, and we were not touching the controllers. We were just set back. I think we were having snacks or something. And we were playing Frogger, and that damn frog started playing by itself when it was one of our turns. It wasn't I mean, the old Atari didn't have built-in simulation demo modes or anything like that, right? These were old machines. And that dang frog made it halfway across the map on its own. So we ran outside and sat outside on the porch until our parents came home. So that's my one of my St. Augustine stories. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I've never thought about that. Why are they only white or black? Really, like dark shadows. Um, I so one of the thoughts for me anyway is how they manifest themselves is by manipulating the ions in the air or the chemistry of the air, and causing like a mist like small molecule. And if you put enough of those together, it'll be like a pixel rendition of what they would look like. And that might attribute to why they are white. What I think about in the black, dark blob type things is they are attracting all the light, so they appear black. They're sucking in the light like a vortex or a black hole, so they appear black. Um, but color, I don't know, right? Because some people have seen ghosts and they thought they were looking at another human being. So they were not only colorful, but they appeared to be dense as well. So yeah, I mean, so much work needs to be done in our field on that kind of stuff, which I am trying to help. So one of the things that I'm working on is Project Eris, and the initial stages of Project Eris will be to allow you guys to upload field reports. You won't have to write the report. Nobody wants to write a report. All you have to do is the way I want to design this is you're going to answer a questionnaire about your investigation. It will take that and use generative AI and generate a field report for you based off of everything that you told it. And then that will be uploaded to the website and other people can go and read it. What I want to do is create a collection or database of field reports. I talk a lot about MUFON and how MUFON does a fantastic job with their field reports and their white papers and their research. We don't do that in the ghost hunting side of the paranormal, and I would like to see us start doing that. Now, the downside to that is it's going to add extra layers for you folks out in the field, meaning you're going to have to take notes. Right? This isn't something you can fill out the night after and then try to remember what time did we capture that EVP. Right? You're going to have to write it down. EVP captured 8:45. Saw a shadow 9:10. All of that so that you can populate this field report. Um, so that's something I got going on in the background to help us with it. And the other cool thing is we can scan all these documents, these field reports as they come in, and use generative AI to find correlations, right, between events, maybe locations, things like that, so that we can start, you know, everybody's got their beliefs, right? Full moon. Some people say the full moon, thins the veil. Well, do we have proof of that? We have people that say that and believe that, but do we have actual qualitative and quantitative proof of that? That's the idea behind these reports. Is once we start collecting enough of those and the white papers, then we can say yes, it actually does. We have data for that. Thank you. Yeah, it would be a worldwide. Anybody could access it. So, it's an internet web app, so they could access it and create their report. You'll put in basic information, your name, the team members, the address of the location, the weather, all of that stuff, and then you go into the details of your investigation as well. So we're going to track all that. We'll have the dates, right? So it'll automatically look and see what the phase the moon is in and populate that. There's a lot of stuff that we can do with generative AI in the background, so that you don't have to type all that in, but it can grab all that stuff, the weather, things like that. Yep. So I've got a fun little topic that I don't know if you guys have ever looked into spectral analysis. Real-time spectral analysis. My focus is on FM frequencies. The FM frequency spectrum goes from 88 megahertz to 108 megahertz. So it's a tiny bandwidth that we can monitor. Some believe that paranormal activity could potentially interfere with radio waves, and that creates the unpredictable signals or sounds, voices that we hear come through. Now, the goal of real-time spectral analysis is to detect any unexplained disturbances within the spectrum of the FM radio waves. You can use software like SDR, which stands for Software Defined Radio, and you plug in a little piece of hardware you can get off Amazon for like $35, and you can visualize the entire FM spectrum in real time. This will let you monitor for unusual anomalies that don't correspond with regular FM stations. You can actually look at UHF, AM, shortwave. Hey, I'm going to show a little video on that here in a bit, and that will probably clear up some of that questions you got there. So in spectral analysis, we'll look for the spikes that shouldn't be there, basically. And those EVPs that we hear might appear as irregular bursts of sound within that signal, right? And within the ranges that don't align with a typical broadcast. So when you look at it, and I'm going to show some videos here, when you look at it, you'll see these static spikes. Those are going to be the radio stations that are broadcasting nonstop, right? So there'll just be spikes there, and they'll always be there. We're going to look for spikes that pop and disappear, show up, disappear. Those are the odd ones, right? So the SDR hardware, like I said, it's around $35 on Amazon, and you can receive. Well, there's different ones. So the one that I like is the RTL SDR. It's $34 Amazon. That seems to be the gold standard. Um, and let's see here. I'm going to throw up this website and show a video. Oh, and well, I'll go back to that in a second. Let's stay on topic, shall we? Here is my video for an SDR.
If I select this as 6 megahertz, I can now zoom right out, and I can view all the way down to, what are we down here, towards 25 megahertz, all the way past 30. So I can view pretty much the entire 10 meter band. If I go here and zoom in a little bit there, and I can move it along here, let's just center it at about 28.5 or so, and let's zoom right in there. So I can view now, there's not quite the center of the band. Let's move it a little bit further, and I can view pretty much the entire 10 meter band. Look at that, I can actually see there's a signal there, massive signal there at the moment. So I can see everything that's going on here on the 10 meter band. Here we've got a audio output. So this is where it becomes really powerful with virtual audio cable, and I'll go into that in a second once I've gone over the software itself. But you can see here that you've got all of these different virtual line outputs, and we can use those to pump those to other software programs such as WSJTX. If I actually go in to my recording program here at the moment and I unmute that, you'll start to hear the FT8 signal. So I'm actually piping the audio from the SDR into my recording program, which is pretty cool too.
Yeah, so I think that's very powerful that you can hear it. So if you start seeing these anomalies on a certain frequency, you can click on that frequency, and like he did, he pumped it through some kind of Audacity or anything like that would work, and then you can hear what's coming through there. So I think that's very powerful. I mean, you still need radio scanners, the broken radio, the spirit boxes, but if you start seeing a lot of anomalies come through on a certain frequency, you can then click on it and actually just hear it right through there. So I used to work with TV satellite data communication, satellite spectral analysis. AM I used for what our satellites track the arc from east to west. Yeah, so I've got a portable one that I carry around with me. It's made by the RF company, RF's Explorer. Yeah, so that's a portable one that I carry around with me when I do investigations. The only downside to that is I can't listen to anything. I can only see the band, and just tells me where the spikes are on those. So that kind of takes the spirit box sessions and adds another layer to it. Like you saw in the video down below, the colorful little graph, that was the what would you call the filter wavelengths, right? Or the frequency wavelengths right there. So you could see which frequencies are coming through on that. So it's basically noise, right? So the darker it is, the lower the amplitude for that frequency is, and the brighter it is, the more powerful for that frequency the amplitude would be. So that is SDR. That's, again, that stands for where's my note? Software defined radio. So yeah, I've been playing around with that a lot lately. Haven't captured anything, but I have found a lot of weird things going on. So I have captured some audio that have come through, and again, it always looks a little different than a normal voice or a normal broadcast would be. It just kind of, it doesn't have the same characteristics. It's strange to say the least when you look at the frequency spectrograph for those. So I now have time to take any questions. I did see some posts coming through on Facebook about people are now questioning the dead bill. I don't know why that is, but they haven't gone into specifics. But some people are starting to see a pattern through them. So I'm curious if any of you own a dead bell, if you have experienced anything like that, any kind of weird reoccurring or pattern like responses that come through. Or if you have any questions about, the drones, this is what I wanted to show you. So, we talk about shooting down drones, right? We don't need to shoot down drones because we have technology that will just bring them down.
This clever gadget is helping to tackle drones at the European Soccer Championships. Shooting the drones out of the sky could be dangerous, but this device jams the signal, allowing it to be brought down from the sky in a controlled manner. Stadiums have restricted airspaces during the championship games, and this will go some way to keeping the players and the fans safe.
Yeah, so our government, if these were drones that the government was not controlling, they could be brought down. There is technology out there to bring them down. There's a website called, what is this? D-Drone. And let me see if I can use technology and present this website. It's an interesting website. Share screen. I have no idea if it's sharing my screen or not. Can somebody tell me if they see this D-Drone website? No, I must not be working it properly. Oh, select window or screen. Here we go. I think this is going to do it. Oh, the infinity screen. Okay, so I'm going to assume this is showing now. This is D-Drone. It's, again, stadium protection. They do some interesting things here. I'll scroll through all this stuff. They protect the airspace, right? So they have sensors and a camera. They can detect the drone, right, with their sensors and their camera. They can identify the drone, if it's a friend or a foe. I don't know how they do that, but they can. Oops, I don't want to demo. That's what happens when you do stuff live. They can track the drones. They can find the pilot, right? That's the big one. Look at this. Locates not only the drone's position, but also the pilot. So that technology exists. So there's no reason to shoot down a drone. There's no reason that we should be worried about that, because we have the technology not only to find the drone, but find the pilot and bring it down. So again, these have to be government controlled drones. Otherwise, the technology exists to just bring them down. So let me get caught up on some of these comments over here. Oh, it's cool. So they use one in a video, and they also get the Oculus Say Bell. Hmm. So detective friend or foe would be the programming language for send and receive data. Okay. So you're saying depending on what the programming language is, we could detect if that's how it detects if it's a friend or a foe. Not the language, but maybe how the code is written, what it's up to, basically. But yeah, because I see a lot of, even my dad's one of them, right? They're like, why don't they shoot them down? I'm like, well, if they're the size of a small car, you don't want that falling on a house. Could hurt somebody. But the technology does exist to bring them down. So that's why I believe they are controlled by the U.S. government. But why they're keeping it a secret, I think, is a bigger problem than the drones being in the air themselves. So whether it be a dirty bomb they're looking for, or, one of the other thoughts, a while back, there were 42 monkeys that escaped a primate research facility. That was in South Carolina, though. They captured them all but four. Four of those disease-ridden monkeys are still running around, or they passed away and died in the woods. We don't know. I often thought maybe those drones are trying to find those other four, but I think New Jersey's too far away from South Carolina for the monkeys to have made it that far. They're small monkeys, so I don't know if they would have made it that far. Um, but that was another thought that I had as well. So my wife used to work as a grant assistant at a primate research facility, and know this: all those monkeys have diseases. They do not have a monkey there that they are not using. If they don't have need for the monkey, they euthanize it. That's one reason why my wife stopped working there, because she would run the grants, and if a grant ran over, or their budget went over for the grant, they would save money, just like big companies save money by laying people off. They would save money by euthanizing monkeys that they couldn't afford to keep going. Um, so we also have a power source. Also depends on the power source, if it's a mini nuclear battery source or the data. Yeah, that would be bad. I guess you could fly a dirty bomb around that way. Um, but I would hope they bring that one down for sure. Yes. All right. So send me some questions. What have you run into in a recent investigation that you weren't sure about, why it happened, if it was paranormal or not, or something normal, or devices acting weird, what scenarios could cause them to act weird, that sort of stuff. I'm here to answer those kind of questions for you guys, and keep you updated and informed on how this technology works in the background. A lot of folks don't know that, and they just see what they see on TV, and they think they know how to use this stuff. And sadly, the TV people don't know how to use them either, because I see them do a lot of goofy, stupid things. Um, I saw Jack Osborne, and he had a meter setting right next to a REM pod. I mean, so close they were practically touching. And I'm like, dude, come on, you're killing me. You're jamming. You got two devices that generate EMF, probably within the same frequency because they're made by the same guy, and they probably use the same circuit, and so they're just jamming each other. You know, how would you effectively run equipment near overhead power? Ooh, that's a tough one. Um, Yeah, you would, man, yeah, that is a tough one. So they're gonna pulse. They're probably gonna pulse at around 60 hertz. Um, really, that's where you need a device that would allow you to adjust it. Um, allow you to change the sensitivity, so that you need a stronger signal in order to set it off. Um, and sadly, not a lot of devices do that. My Piccolo does. You can set the sensitivity on my Piccolo device. It's an EMF music box, but there's not many other devices out there that do that. But that's what you would need, is something to adjust, to recalibrate it so that it's working in the environment that you're in. I think they're a terrible idea, unless, well, no, I think they're probably a terrible idea. Here's why. So an infrasound generator will generate infrasound. We know that infrasound affects the human body in a negative way. It can cause depression. It can cause irritability. It can cause fear. It's known as the fear frequency. So, why would you want to introduce that into a paranormal investigation? The only thing I could think of is if you were to use that on a person and then monitor what goes on around them. Uh, so you could turn it on, put them in a room, turn it on, get their mind, adjusted to that fear frequency, and then turn it off and bring in other investigators and see if the spirits are going to now interact with them in a different way that they have been with other people. But as far as doing anything with the spirits, I don't think it's going to amp up energy or anything like that with the spirits, the infrasound. Wade, I was thinking about oh yeah, with the bands. Yeah, I could see that. And all the I mean, seriously, all the EMF generated from all of the electronic instruments, the speakers, the amplifiers, the people's energy, like you're saying, all of that would just be amped up. So I don't know about this one. I'm going to Google it. Hashtag death whistle. There are whistles that will emit a very low frequency, the opposite of like a dog whistle. So I want to look and see. Yeah, it's used for psychological warfare. Um, I do know that no, it's not emitting infrasound on that with the Aztec death whistle. It's emitting something that sounds like a person screaming in that frequency, which I think would still uh, have a reaction to a human reaction. Anything like a baby crying, someone screaming for help, or anything like that. We have a reaction to that within that certain frequency. I think it's a fox or a coyote. I'm not sure, but I know when they cry out, they sound like a woman screaming, and it absolutely freaks out campers. When they hear that. So I think there are other frequencies that can trigger fear as well, or anxiety, just besides the infrasound. That's very possible. It's always different for like, have you ever let someone else blow the whistle while you listen to it? Or is it only when you blow it, it doesn't bother you? Because sometimes when you're the one doing it, you're kind of immune to it. It's a weird concept, but yeah. Oh yeah, we would be filling the air with like almost all frequency would be amplified in the air, through a band concert. So that's interesting thought. Um, yeah, that's kind of where my thought was going. What if we? I guess that would be white noise, right? That's what white noise is all frequencies at the same level. Brown noise is going to be the lower frequencies of white noise, and pink noise is going to be the high end frequencies of white noise. Um, so, yeah, could we just crank up white noise and see if there's any reaction to that? I know when Travis and I were at what we were once calling the Mullins home, which is now Dr. Bruner's mansion. Um, we would play some cello music because we were under the impression that one of the previous tenants there played the cello, and I would randomly stop it because we played it through some speakers really loud, and I would randomly stop it to see if there was activity going on, footsteps or whatever that we would spur up. But I never thought about using white noise, and then doing the same thing, just randomly stopping it to see if you could catch a sound, footsteps or something like that. Now I want to try that one now. Add that to my list. Um, I wish I kind of, well, I live nearby, a couple hours away from Melbourne Manor. I just don't get out there that often, but I wish I lived closer. I do live very close for our schoolhouse, very close. I've been there several times. I do not think it's haunted. I've never captured anything. I don't know of anybody that's captured anything compelling. And now it's owned by the famous Sam and Colby. And it went from being, I think, around $300 a night to being jacked up to $1,200 a night. And now it's full of demons, according to them. I've never found any evidence of anything being there, much less demons. But now apparently it's full of demons. All right, hit me up with some more questions. I got nothing else to talk about. And if you don't give me something to talk about, I'll just ramble on for tonight. Well, my son saw something for our schoolhouse one time. I don't know. I didn't see it, so he's not into ghost hunting. It's not his thing. But I took him with me. He's 21, or he was 21 at the time. He's older now. He went into a room and saw mist forming near the ceiling. And he came and got me and told me. By the time I got there, it was gone. So I because I couldn't see it, I can't really say if it was an old, dusty, dirty room. I don't know if he kicked up some dust and didn't realize it, and his flashlight hit it. So, but that's the closest thing I've ever come to seeing a ghost at Farrar. But now Sam and Colby own it, and you can rent it for $1,200 a night. It's a steal. Did I lose everyone? You've gotten quiet over in chat. That on going back to my other topic of haunted recording studios. I know there was one. I think it was called the Loft in Detroit. It's an old Catholic church turned into a recording studio. I wonder how cool it would be just to take all the fancy microphones they have and just turn them on one night and just record, 32 tracks, 32 mics, and see what you get. That'd be interesting. I may rent out a haunted recording studio just for that. Man, there's so many places I'd like to visit. The pieces of equipment that I want to try out are always like new ideas that I have. Pieces of equipment that are tried and true. Even the ones that I've designed. I'm more interested in my new ideas, trying them out. I've got a radio, ITC, spirit box radio concept that I would like to get and try out. I've got a few other devices that are, kind of new to the paranormal field. I like to try those out, and I like to get them out in locations, and I mix them up a little bit with devices I know they've seen, like maybe a REM pod or a K2 meter, because it's interesting when they see a device that they know how to interact with it versus when they see a device that's totally new to them and they don't know how to interact with it. When I was at that house, what is it called? Bruner Manor, used to be the Mullins. We were the first to investigate that. No one had ever gone in there to investigate before. And it was funny to watch them pick up on certain devices that they would just like grab a hold of it and play with it all night long. And then the next day they would do the same thing, but with a different device, and then play with that one all day long. Until, but we were there for 7 days investigating. And then towards the end, it seemed like they were comfortable with all of the devices and started playing with all of them. I'm guessing it is because a baby monitor is, I almost said shortwave. It's not shortwave. It's just a short distance transmitter receiver. Unlike, say, a radio station or some other powerful, more expensive transceiver and receiver, baby monitor is just meant to be used within the confines of your house. So maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know what frequency a baby monitor operates at. Let me look and see, because that could be it too. Yeah, they operate very low. 49 megahertz is the most common for baby monitors, and some of them get up to 900 megahertz. So they're not in the gigahertz range. So that maybe that's something worth investigating. These low frequency transceivers and receivers, maybe they can hop in on that signal a little easier and get their voices heard. I don't know if it's the microphone of the baby monitor picking something up versus if they're manipulating the signal themselves, um, and adding to it, right? So that when it gets to the receiver, we can hear their voices. One way to try that, or do a test, would be to remove the microphone from a baby monitor completely, and then see if you still get some of those. Have to, right? Do some destructive testing on one, and then not on the other, and then compare them and see. See, I like these ideas that come through, then they get me thinking, and then I want to go out and investigate some more. I did try something similar. I took a speaker and turned it into a microphone, and I was trying to capture EVPs that way, but I cut out the cone, the paper cone for this. It's cheap subwoofer type thing, so it had a big coil on it. So I cut out the medium, the paper cone. So there's no way it could have picked up a voice or anything like that because it was gone. The only thing it could pick up is interference in the electromagnetic frequencies that would affect the coil. Because my theory was that when we capture an EVP, we're not capturing sound, we're just capturing their EMF that they are emitting, and then that gets picked up through the coil on the microphone, and then that's how it gets put onto the recording medium. I haven't gone out with it enough to test it, and EVPs are hard to catch anyway. So yeah, that's another idea I had, which uh, I'm still thinking about, is to take a microphone and put it in a vacuum, build a vacuum chamber that I could put the microphone in and suck all the air out and see if it records any voices that way. So with there being no air in there, it would be hard for the sound to migrate from the source to the microphone, because once it hit that vacuum, there's no more air molecules for the sound to bounce off of and continue. It just, like, they say you can't hear scream in space because there's no air in space. There's molecules don't bounce off one another to make it to your eardrums or the microphone. Um, Unless it's Star Wars, then there is sound in space, or Star Trek. Yes, these things are terrible. Forget infrasound, forget all that stuff. Go into a sound suppression room. You will not last long in there if it's a good sound suppression room. If it's properly, yeah. We had one in college, and it was for my vibrations class. And we got to, our professor was like, whoever can spend more than 5 minutes or more in there, I'll buy you lunch. There wasn't a single person that spent more than 2 minutes in there. There was just no way. Not because it was dark, there was a light in there. It's just the quietness. There's nothing more crazy or scary than true quietness. Like, you can hear your heart beating, and then you can hear the blood flowing through your veins, and then you can hear every little thing that you've never heard before in your body, because your body's the only thing making noise inside there. So yeah, that's a terrible, terrible place to be in one of those noise suppression rooms. I can imagine a noise suppression room with uh, what do they call that when sensory deprivation and noise suppression. So that's a good question. No one really knows. why. Um, if that could be figured out and replicated, then we wouldn't have to spend $3,000 on one of those, would we? That would be great. You would have to do destructive testing. That's the problem. You would have to take it apart, remove components, swap out components to see, what changes. And nobody wants to buy. You would need two of them. You would need one as your reference, untouched, and then the other one modified. And nobody wants to, at least I don't want to spend $6,000 to do destructive testing on one of those. Um, if I could get my hands on one cheaply, yeah, I would tear that thing apart and do all kinds of cool stuff with it to figure out what's going on. If it is the microphone, the way that it's designed, the way that the coil is designed, is it the electronic circuitry? Panasonic came out and said that those voices are just a noisy electronic circuit. But like I've heard some things on the DR60 that the kind of sound people say they're screams, but to me it just sounds like modulated distortion. So that would fall into what Panasonic has said. But I've also heard full blown sentences come through there, which I don't think is modulated noise. I think that is an EVP. So that's kind of difficult to try to nail down what exactly makes the DR60 a little better than some other recording devices. Now, if I had some more money, if I could make some more money off Ghost Gear, I would buy one of them and do this little test. But yeah, no, they're just so dang expensive. I know there is a circuit diagram floating around. I don't know if it has part numbers on it. If it had part numbers on it, then you could maybe replicate it that way. But electronic circuitry is always being obsoleted. You might get 3 years out of some electronic chip or component before it gets obsoleted. So I'm guessing all these components are probably obsoleted by now, and there's been new and better versions made of them. But and those new and better, different versions might have worked out whatever they put into the DR60 so successful, right? So it's the perfect storm, right? All these little components added together work out, but if you were to update or upgrade any one of them, then the whole thing would probably crap out and not work the way that we want it to work in the paranormal field. No, because they're using um, they're using like a RAM, right? They're using a solid state to record that, and when you wipe that out, that's just digital ones and zeros, and they all get wiped out to zero. It's not like a magnetic tape that might still hold some residual sound. But I think it was the last podcast talking with Rob, the other Rob, the non-imposter Rob, and he was talking about some people would take an old roll of tape, magnetic tape that you would use to record, and lay it under their head and go to sleep at night, and then listen back to it, and there were sounds or something on there. And I think that's from the brain waves, which your brain does emit a little EMF, laying on this thing all night long, kind of restructuring the magnetic field around that magnetic tape. And, that's causing those sounds and what have you on the tape. If you remember the old cassette tapes, one of the ways to erase them was a powerful magnet, or VHS tapes. I remember this too. You could buy these VHS tape erasers that you just put the VHS tape on top of it and powered it on, and it erased that entire tape. Um, so I think working that way, laying your head on the tape would kind of do the same thing. Only it's using the magnetic field around your skull to realign the magnetics of the tape. Now, the one question is, can the spirits do that on the old cassette tape recorders? Can they realign the magnetic field on there to put their voices on it? That's theoretically possible. If we can do it with our own brain or their head laying on it, why can't they do it? Right. All right. I think we got time for one more if you got one. Now, in the DR60s, I know someone that owns 3 of them, and they will lay them out, and they never get the responses on all 3. They would only get, responses on 1. But even if you did that with another digital recorder, even devices, it seems like they just pick on one and they can concentrate or focus their energy on that one device and interact with it. That it's not like an area that they're interacting with. It's more like they focus on one device. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is going to be it for the night. I do appreciate you tuning in. And if you have any questions for me after the show, you can email them there to me. And I will get to them and maybe even use them on the next show. So, again, thank you. I do appreciate you. I do really thank you for tuning in, because it does, help me get ideas and content for the shows. I do really appreciate that. And so with that, good night.